Whenever flutist Mary Stoper comes to our studios, we know we're going to hear an interesting program performed by some extraordinary musicians. And tonight she's brought with her Melody Lord for a program of music mostly transcribed for the flute. And here are flutist Mary Stoper and pianist Melody Lord in Franck's Sonata in A Major.
My experience performing with Melody lasted over 25 years. There was one time she had to do I do remember this, she had to play, now it was not on a tour, but it was on a program in Daniel Barenboim. She had to play a really hard piano lick in a kind of a jazzy piece. And she was being told she had to do this at very short notice. And she was petrified that it was just going to be a mess. And of course, he heard her play it one time and he said, "Great," and walked away. she was so nervous about this whole thing, and he went, "Great." That was it. It was done. And then she played it in the concert, and it was very funny. She was always so well prepared. Always, always. What made Melody extraordinary? What makes anybody extraordinary? When you extrapolate what they do in life, does that make them extraordinary? Usually you find you go after qualities of the person itself. But Melody was so non-separated from her musical entity. It was her. You wouldn't think of Melody so much if you didn't think about her playing the piano. It's hard to think of her. And what she did better than anyone I have known since her was to be able to do anything.
I do feel like I need to mention and explain to people how rare Melody was as a pianist. She was an orchestral pianist, an accompanist, and a great solo player. And to have all those three elements in one is really, really rare.
Whatever kind of player you were, she could adapt to your style in just a blink of an eye. If you had decided to change the tempo, she adapted. And it didn't matter if you were a wind player. I never knew a pianist that could breathe with a wind player, but she played with vocalists a lot, so she breathed with them. But when she began playing with string players and even brass players, which was not a lot that she did, but she could do that as well. She knew how to weight the sound to work perfectly, and that's extraordinary. Because you didn't have to say, "Please play softer, please play louder, please do this, please do that." She did it. Once she heard you kind of play with what you were going to do, she figured out what you needed. And that was beyond a gift. When you played with Melody, you were invincible. You knew that no matter what happened, she was going to stick to you and you would finish together and it would be great. You knew everything was going to be fine. You walked out on stage to play the first piece. You knew everything was going to be fine. How much more extraordinary can that be?
So it was St. Patrick's Day, New York City, Carnegie Hall. Melody and I were performing all 6 of our arrangements there. Our programs were a festive green, and our headline was Newly and Arranged Composed Music for the 21st Century. Our opening piece was the Overture to the Marriage of Figaro by Mozart. And for those of you that don't know it, it starts digga-digga-dum, digga-digga-digga-digga-digga-dum. And Melody and I were together in unison, both on rhythm and notes. And I walked on stage with Melody, and I was caught up in my own little world, and I didn't cue her in, I just started to play. And I realized that I had no piano behind me for those. It was just a few notes. And what was so remarkable about this, I'll never forget this, is that she came in on dugga-dugga-dum. It was like the third, I think she came in on like the third 16th note of that opening. So it was like 3 notes, but it was so fast. The fact that she could come in, she was just so ready and so on it, in the exact same place that I was on the exact same note, exact same rhythm, is truly remarkable, truly remarkable. Melody was a prolific composer and arranger. I was fortunate enough to do 6 arrangements with her. And they were mostly based on, popular classics. One of ours, our first and biggest and most significant, was Carmen. Melody chose The Beautiful Rose to go on the cover. And the rose is significant in Moonlight. And that is why the rose is significant in Moonlight, is because she chose this rose, the single rose, to be on the cover. Carmen took us nearly a year to complete. It was quite long before it was ready to be printed and published. And Melody was always looking for musical terms to put in there, kind of off the beat that normally wouldn't be put in. So we were just kind of funnily going through the Italian dictionary, because all the musical terms were in Italian. And she'd pick out some comical ones to throw in there. We were very detailed with the musical expression and how we performed it. So we wanted to be very detailed about these sections. When we got to the final chord, we sat there and she's like, she goes, this last chord, it's legendary. It should be played legendary. So she's like, get the Italian dictionary and look up what legendary translates into. So we did, and it was like legionario, or however you pronounce it. So that's what it was. It was legendary.
She was more than a teacher to so many people. She was a teacher, and she was a mentor, and she was a guide, and she didn't just invest personally in people's musical ability. I mean, she invested in making them the best person that they could be in any way that she could. Everybody felt like they could talk to Mom about anything they were having trouble with. It was, I can talk to Melody about that, and Melody will help with that, and Melody will care about that. And she really, truly did. She cared about so many people with her entire heart. Yeah. It was incredible. When we were all really, really young, Laura was only about 3 months old. She was in a very, very serious car accident, and her car was completely totaled, and she had no way to get another one. And it was right around Christmas that year. And I remember you'd walk into our townhouse, and the Christmas tree was over on the left. And that year, the presents went out into the hallway. And then all of our students had kind of rounded up and raised enough money to get her a new car. So it was awesome to see that, that she impacted other people's lives that much, that they would even, congregate on their own, even though their only thing in common was that, our mom was their teacher, but that was enough for them to kind of band together and get that.
So Melody is a mentor. You just couldn't ask for a better mentor. I mean, what she did for me was so significant. I had met her, she had performed in my graduate recital. After the recital, I had talked to one teacher, and it's kind of like, you get done with college and then you're like, well, what now? And that's kind of how you feel. You're a little, not that confident, yeah, I'm a good player, but, you don't really know what direction to go into. And that teacher had said, well, plant a garden. I was like, what? So I went backstage to put my flute away, and Melody was there. She was waiting for me, and she says, I want to talk to you. You need to be entering competitions. You need to be studying with Mary Stoper. And I thought, wow, I didn't really think I was good enough to be entering competitions, let alone winning. And she was so persistent on that. She said, give me a call, we'll talk next week. But to me, I was like, why is she doing this? She could have just easily went on her way and to her next job. There was nothing in it for her. So, I did what she said. I studied with Mary. Mary brought my playing to a whole nother level. And then winning competitions gave me the confidence to start arranging. And arranging brought Melody and I together professionally and bonded this friendship. And even to this day, I think about how significant that is. I think if she wasn't there to say those words, for me to do this, to go study with Mary and to go enter these competitions, we wouldn't be here today. I mean, I think about it, go plant a garden, go do this. It was so significant because if she wasn't there, I don't even know if I really would be even playing today.
Yeah, I think that one of our favorite memories of her and something that lives on is whenever she was on a water slide, you knew it because, of course, we would always go down first and then she would be the last one down, and she had this distinctive wooting that she would do, and you could follow her. She'd go, whoa, whoa! And you could hear her going all the way. You could follow where she was in the slide until she came spitting out, and then she'd get off and be like, that was great, let's do it again, None of us wanted to ride with her because of that. It was like, it was embarrassing that she would do that. So we would always go on our own, and then she'd get stuck with, a 7-year-old kid who didn't know her and wind up with her behind him.
We watched people's attention kind of start, congregating towards like this slide to see what was coming
out of it.
And it was our mom in her swimsuit. It's like eye makeup going everywhere, having an amazing time. So
Yes.
That's what she lived for. Our mom, she was always so generous. She wanted us to have the best of clothes, the best of everything, the newest of everything. And so one of the things that she spent money on us for was clothes. She did not spend money on clothes for herself either. So she had, one shirt in particular that I think would surface at kind of more of the most embarrassing moments and stuff. So we all, went to the same high school and everything. And there was this kind of cul-de-sac almost that she would turn around and stuff. And so we'd see, the red station wagon coming around, and she would, she'd know that we could see her coming up, so that wasn't an issue of letting us know that she was there, but we'd watch this thing kind of go over the speed bumps, and she'd like lay on the horn just because she knew the horn sounded really, really ridiculous, and it would embarrass us.
The horn was like, me. It was like
a cartoon.
Like a cartoon
right.
horn.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's moving when you blast that horn.
Yeah. So, and then sometimes like she'd park the car from afar, and we'd be sitting there with friends, and so she'd be walking up for us to try to find her, and she'd make eye contact with us, and so she'd know that we saw her, and then she would just like.
But that wasn't it. It was one
no,
step
but
further.
she had the smile where she,
One
how
step.
she'd like smile first, and she had this shirt. It was like a light teal blue, and it had like a big white flower on it, and it said "Best Mom." Just in
like
all
caps.
Yeah, and it was like really, really ratty and stuff, and then she just, had like, the eye makeup that was a little like smeared and stuff, and she'd be like smiling at us, and then she'd go,
But there was always the sound that
this
accompanied it
way.
too, like, "Hey girls, woo, woo."
and she'd see our
We
face,
see you.
just like our countenance just change, and she loved
Ate
it.
it up.
Absolutely loved it.
Speaking of apparel, her vacation wear, you can talk about
yeah.
this one.
Basically the same thing.
She rocked a fanny pack past when anybody should have.
Yeah.
She rocked
did.
it though.
Well,
She had everything in it that was needed.
She had everything. She could fit.
Yeah.
She could fit more in a fanny pack than the manufacturers wanted
Yeah.
to be put in there.
Yeah.
But it was you see this 5'4" woman with this like short, really red hair and these baggy T-shirts that say Best Mom or like Palatine Public Library like reading champion, and then
Fanny pack and one of
Fanny
those
pack.
like battery powered fans. You remember those?
oh no,
Oh my gosh.
She had like all these animals. She loved her little guinea pigs. And, we'd greet her guinea pigs, and then she'd always make me some like concoction of some terrible tasting like drink that she'd make me drink because it was healthy for me. And I remember one time I almost like just threw up right on her shoes because it was so gross. But she's like, yes, this is good for you, drink it. But things like that. She was so caring, so compassionate. Just, always wanting to make you feel better. She always listened. When you were gray, feeling gray, she was a ray of sunshine that made you feel better. You just always felt better when you were around her, always.
So, when we were younger and Mom couldn't find a babysitter, the only choice that she had would be to bring us to Orchestra Hall with her. So, from when we were babies in playpens, all the way up until probably when you and I were 7 and 8, we would just be in the locker room at Orchestra Hall playing tag and hide and seek while the concert was going on. And probably some of the best musicians in the world would walk by us or trip over our toys and we wouldn't even realize it.
Yeah, for me too. Because I remember, I think she took me to work with her until I was probably like 10 or 11. And it was just like, it's exactly what she said. Like, you don't comprehend the fact that like you are extremely like privileged as it is. But I remember like the security guards were my best friends. She'd have them watch me, especially because I was like really young. And so I'd like play tag and hide and seek with them. And I thought all of their names were Captain, because that's what they called them. So I'd always be like, oh yeah, well like Captain and I was all of their, like they were all my friends. But it was, yeah, I mean looking back, it's just like, it was such an awesome experience. It was so cool.
And it was really funny to, watch the orchestra kind of come down and change right after the concert, and we've still got like coloring books all over the
Barbies.
table and everything, and I'm finishing up my, homework that is tough reading as a first grader can have or anything, but it was just really normal, like, okay, here's all the, violinists coming and changing out of, everybody's in black, but we've just got crayons everywhere. It was funny. Yeah, and there's I think it was right after they had remodeled the women's locker room as well, and we did some massive hide and seek in the, women's bathroom.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was good. It was good. It was,
Yeah.
There's so many stalls.
Well, and there's hallways for days, and
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we
Just keeps
probably
going.
went to a lot of places that we weren't supposed to run and hide, but nobody.
But we hid well, so we didn't get caught.
Oh, they know now. Thinking of funny memories of her, I think that me and both of my sisters probably could have wound up being comedians because of all of the funny things that she did. None of us were here for this one, but we heard at one point that she was running from teaching to DePaul, and she had a concert that night. Of course, it was just the dead of January, February, freezing in Chicago, and she had to get to Orchestra Hall, so she's all bundled up and she's driving from Palatine, and she got there and she went and she parked, went to the locker room, changed into her outfit, and ran on stage. Well, she forgot to take off her earmuffs. So she walks on stage in the middle of a concert in Orchestra Hall with the Chicago Symphony wearing bright red earmuffs and sits down and starts playing. And apparently the conductor tried to cue her to tell her she was wearing them, and she just wasn't catching on to it. And so it wasn't until intermission that someone said, "You have your earmuffs on." So she should have kept them on, in my opinion. That would have been perfect. But
Of all the things I can remember, and all of this is common knowledge at this point, in terms of her very, very complex, very wonderful woman. Talent, musical talent, very, very wise friend, and so on and so forth. But my general recollection after so many years, after about 20 years now, is that she was a mother first and foremost. And that's pretty much what's bubbling to the surface here. And she would do anything for her girls. And I have to get this little story off my chest because this still amazes me to this day. She had to create an income. She was a single mom. And she would teach right up until the very end, hop in the car, go down to Orchestra Hall, rush hour traffic. And this happened more than once. I do recall her telling me that she got caught up in traffic. She would have the traffic radio on so she could sort of guesstimate how long it would take her to get down to the hall. And at one point, she knew she wasn't going to make it on the expressway. So she opened up the glove compartment, pulled out a train schedule, and decided that the exit coming up would actually get her to the train station. And she made it just with a few minutes to spare, hopped on the train, got to Orchestra Hall again with a few minutes to spare, walked out on stage and actually played. Got there for the downbeat. And this happened more than once. She was I'm still awestruck by that story. I don't know.
She would always make it.
She would
always make it.
And that stuff is impossible. I mean, no regular person could do such a thing.
And I remember, there were so many times too where we had this, this shop at my school, and it was just the school shop, the school supplies, and she would always offer to work, and there'd be other moms that would work there too. And I'd hear my friends, the other kids around school being like, oh my gosh, so embarrassing, my mom's here. And I would get so excited. I would be at lunch and everyone would go off campus, oh, we're gonna get food. I was like, I'm gonna go hang out with my mom. And I would go to the school store for 50 minutes and just sit on the counter and just sit and eat and talk with her. And that was one of the things that was so awesome for me, because especially in the past, few years that we had together. I mean, it was just every single night, I would just come home and it would be her and I together, and I could tell her everything, and it was just we had such an open relationship, and it was so fun, and she just she trusted me and I trusted her, and it was just, she was just remarkable. I mean, it was just, she was my best friend. There's really nothing else I can say about it.
Hi, and this was my mom's piano. So this was bought by her mom as a high school graduation present. So it now is probably about 45 years old or so. And so this is what we heard being played till 2 or 3 in the morning every single night. And so all of our students had lessons on it. She would record in it, and this is where she composed all of her music as well while it was in our basement. So in addition to my mom's piano, this was her piano bench. So could have gotten a newer piano bench at some point, but there hasn't been any additional foam that has fallen out of it since it made it over to my place. So that's how it always looked. It used to actually have 2 handles. There's one that's missing on the other side. So she was told when it was getting repaired that it could go up and down just as easily with only 1 handle on it, so that it kind of rocks when you sit on it and everything. But that's what she used for years and years and years. I don't know, maybe if it came with the piano as well, but it is very, very old, not in very good shape, and we wouldn't really have it any other way.
The story started, this particular story, with a young lady doing her master's degree in a prestigious college on the East Coast, and Melody was quite well along as far as her cancer advancing. And she somehow rallied. These people were wonderful. They treated her well. They made sure that she wasn't wanting for anything, the girl's parents. But she rallied. The doctors couldn't believe it. She actually got up, she flew across the country, did a spectacular job, probably one of her best performances. Everything went well, and we were all just kind of keeping our fingers crossed. And it went so well that there was a little bit of a celebration dinner at the end of the night. They had a rock band, and we actually have photographs of Melody dancing to Proud Mary, which is one of her favorite all-time wedding tunes. And she had all of that incredible energy right up until the end. Just amazing.